Oh, garbage.
Think I'm back on.
Very good. We're back in session.
All right.
Tell us when you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, that was quick. That was quicker than the first time.
I know how to do it
I
now.
thought there was a whole bunch of questions you had to answer again.
I have this already.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so we're out of executive session, back in public session, and yeah, where we left off, we discussed some of the sales matters and personal matters. We're still the matter at hand is if the committee wants to recommend to the full board the $8,000 micro enterprise loan, which I flagged just barely over a threshold of 40%, so we'll make record of that. It's Trudy Latimer doing business as Adirondack Hearing Solutions. So 5 years, 5%.
Innovations.
Innovations. I keep saying solutions.
I did too.
So I guess John or Dave, any other matters to discuss on this? Okay. Do we have a motion? Okay.
Full board.
I'll second. Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll move this to the full board with a recommendation, with staff's recommendation also, and I guess Joy or whoever's taking notes, if we could just flag that, maybe put the fact that it's just barely over the 40% threshold, we'll put it in the resolution for the board to know. Okay, you're certainly welcome to come to whoever can let me know when our board meeting is, but there could be the same style of questions that are our full board meeting.
Okay, I appreciate, am I allowed to shake hands or is that COVID restrictions?
It doesn't matter, you can do whatever you want.
I'm Canadian, so I like to talk with my hands and I like to shake hands, so I'm going to shake everyone's hands. Thank you for your time. Hi, very nice to meet you. My hands are freezing, I'll do with this one. Very nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you as
Thanks,
well.
Judy.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
I'll even shake your hand behind the camera. Thank you so much, I appreciate your
Take
time.
care. All right, so under other and unfinished business, we have two other matters. MLR Realty LLC, which is Renzi Food Service. So we've got a packet here, which is our standard cost benefit analysis, project cost, and the application, and also the neg deck and some other matters from the city council. It indicating its past procedure and such. This one's pretty cut and dry. So Dave Zembiak, I guess this is in our packet just to inform us, and we're
Sure. So they've been talking for a bit. This is the project we've been anticipating as part of the rationale behind our moving the rail spur beginning of last year. They want to add a 20,000 square foot facility to the existing facility. 10,000 is cold storage, another 10,000 dry storage, and increase. They're adding about 10 jobs per year. They're a growing company, and you'll see that they've requested that we pursue the 10-year pilot schedule. So it's 100% abatement first 5, then 50%, and then they go to full taxation. So, which
still 50% in total.
Yeah. So, but it still averages 50%. But it front loads the benefit of the organization, but actually for the taxing jurisdictions, it gets it back on full tax rolls earlier.
More quickly. Yeah.
So it's mutual benefit there.
Right. And I guess the second question to this is, since it's under other unfinished, we're not necessarily taking action to move it to the full board, or unless.
No, we are. I think we just combine those categories, but yeah, we're looking for.
Okay, because there wasn't like a
resolution.
resolution. Normally the draft resolution is piled on top of it, so I wasn't sure if they weren't ready yet. So they paid their fee and they're ready to have this go to the full board and have the full board discuss it if we move it?
Yes.
Okay.
And Justin can chime in here. We are in the process right now. We're still finalizing the land conveyance. You remember there was a land swap involved in us moving the rail.
Yeah, I
forward.
read that in the packet.
Would we end, how'd they end up with the wetland issue?
We haven't heard anything back yet, but they're as part of their thing, they're putting in a Corps of Engineer permit so it may fall to them because they're going to need to look for approval to move that stream that went along the old rail bed along the new rail corridor along the ditch there. So we may or may not hear something. The fact that we moved that rail was in a wetland when we moved it, but it was never mapped out, never known. But
I think pointing out, this is one of the biggest cost of benefit ratios I've ever seen, 547 to 1. It's, I didn't know the numbers went that high, but apparently they do. I guess it's in contrast to the next one we're gonna talk about, but this one's pretty cut and dried. It's got all of the benefits there. It meets the criteria that we're trying to do in the industrial park. It's the motivation of swapping land and getting the rail spur in there and all the things that we've been planning for several years. Supports the agricultural industry, the local community. I don't know what else. I mean, this one's pretty cut and dry. John or Dave, did you see anything that really flagged any
I didn't.
worthy discussion?
I can't believe how big these guys have gotten.
I know.
I was down in our plant in western New York and they pulled in a truck down there, they're down in Cuba picking up
Oh,
product.
they're all over the place.
Yeah, they've done a good job to get their tentacles out, so.
Justin, anything to add on your part?
No, it's a fairly standard straight lease. There's some nuances with the assemblage that were referenced already. The MLR owns the primary project parcel, but the city and through the trust are assisting with assembly of additional lands to expand their parcel. Also a land swap going on with the rail spur, which has been relocated. Those are the little nuances with the assemblage. So the base value of the project we'll have to take a quick look at in terms of how that'll be defined, given the addition of some long time exempt lands being brought in as part of the base assemblage. I do recall that Dave indicated perhaps a 10-year pilot would be utilized as opposed to the 15 reflected in the CBA. Is that still the case?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so that there may be some modifications in the CBA given that 15-year run, but I think given the 10-year model, it kind of turns out in sixes in terms of the gross benefit.
Yeah. So Dave, to that question, when we couch it, is it being couched as a 15-year pilot with the last 5 being full taxation, or is it a 10 and then the exemptions run out in year 10?
It's a 10. It just still,
Okay.
our policy is that it's equivalent to 50% over 15.
I know the math works out
Yeah.
the same, but I mean, you
Yeah.
could get a pilot
Yeah.
with full taxation,
Yeah.
although it's.
And actually, well, I think, this version, the C.
To the extent that you go to full tax, there's no sense of being entitled.
No, exactly. I mean, that's why I just wanted to ask. that
This one is based on
clarification.
the 10-year.
So it's a 10-year,
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
10-year
Rob.
pilot.
Rob?
Excuse me?
The cost benefit analysis is,
Another nuance that I'm looking at
No,
right
it's
now,
on
and I have
15
questions
years,
for council. The application is based on an addition to their existing facility of a gross 20,000 square feet, 10 for refrigerated storage and then 10 for different warehousing. The site plan that they have approved right now has several phases of improvements associated with it. Theoretically, if they came in and applied to you for all of those phases, we could consider those as a multi-year project. But at this point, with the commitment just to the first 20, I need to define the project as such. I've asked them to kind of clarify which parts of there's like 4 different additions that they got approved. I just need some clarification on that.
Okay.
I should be able to generate the initial project resolution by Friday. You can get those into your packets for next week.
So to that end, I don't know who prepared this for a while, but we should probably correct the cost benefit summary page and then the actual analysis. They all reference 15 years.
well, so to correct, so it's taking into account the 10-year pilot, but Lyle
Yeah,
did it as a 15-year because of we're looking at the effect over 15 years.
over 50.
But maybe we shouldn't be doing that.
Well, if the
We
pilot's
can do
only
it.
10, why would we
Shouldn't
care?
really have any major impact.
No,
on
if
cost benefit.
But if it doesn't have impact, I mean, we should only care to where we're tying up public funds and holding title and all that. I mean, Justin, I don't know if you have an opinion, like all of our benefit analysis are over 15 years versus 10.
I guess so the question, so for the cost benefit analysis, while it's a 10-year pilot, Lyle had done it as 15 years, including those additional 5 years of full taxation, even though it's not in the pilot then, because that's the average, or don't we need to do that? Follow what I'm saying?
I targeted at 10. You don't know what mill rates are going to do from 11 to 15 and what the actual impact of the pilot will be. I mean, it's all
Right.
theoretical and crystal ball anyway,
Yeah,
but
that's right.
I would crank it to 10, and that way you have a more meaningful analysis of the impact of the exemption of the property and how the exempt property going to taxable on year 11 will
Okay.
not be an impact on the taxing jurisdiction,
I think
so.
For what you said, it's not gonna really impact it.
I can-
The numbers
I can
will just
make-
all shrink, but they're all gonna be,
Right.
still 500 to 1.
Right.
Yeah, so I think with that minor adjustment, if everything can be reforecasted to end at 10-year, if the pilot ends at 10, I think we got 2 documents, your summary, and then that 4 or 5 page cost of benefit. Anything else, Dave or John?
No.
They got a nice grant from ESD, that's great. State money at work,
Well, they're pending.
pending, well, I guess it doesn't skew our, our stuff.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we move it to the full board.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll move this to the full board with the corrections of the summary cost projection and the more elongated cost benefit analysis, reverting back to 10 years for the 10-year pilot schedule. Okay, last matter on the agenda. 31606 Phelps Mills LLC. So we've got the same packet in front of us with the application, cost benefit analysis, and the summary. On the summary, I didn't see the grants that they disclosed covered on the cover page. I don't know, I think
They
consistently.
didn't disclose any on the application.
They got $3 million of grants in their application. Investment tax credit and that sort of megawatt block, or are those not grants? Maybe they're credit, maybe one's the ITC is a credit, but the
Yeah.
megawatt block, is that? I don't know, I'm not familiar with that being a credit or a grant.
And that's
It's on page 76.
Yeah.
tax credit, it appears.
Well, the ITC is definitely a tax credit, but what is the NYSERDA MW megawatt block? I have no idea what that is.
That's in the form of cash post-construction, so that would be a form of, or cash equity infusion versus the ITC being a tax credit.
Okay, so we should treat that as a grant on our cover page that when we disclose grants.
None of that goes into the cost benefit analysis.
No, I get it, but I am sort of,
Well, I think also we're waiting for a breakdown of the 5 million.
okay.
I think they were going to supply us with some
No way to get it.
additional detail.
Yeah, the next
On
page.
77, it's on page 77, they did break it down pretty good. My main,
No,
looking
the
at
application
this,
I have, it's not broken down.
in the board packet,
Oh, it's
page
at that later, right?
77 breaks it down pretty good. I guess the reason I'm bringing up the grants is we got 3 million grants, got bank financing, 0 equity, and a 3-to-1 cost benefit analysis. I mean, those are the big things that the full board will likely discuss. I mean, the application's complete and all that, but
Oh, I didn't have that.
not exactly the best to get the job.
Okay.
We should make sure that.
Excuse me, Justin?
The numbers in the packet.
They beefed up the application a little bit and signed it. Peggy sent it around a few days ago. So as you know, on 77 in the packet, there's a little bit more robust breakdown. The kind of categories that we discussed in the last couple of months that are important for the analysis. They have around $3 billion in equipment costs, 366,000 in site and FF&E, site works almost 900, interconnections almost 600. So it's a pretty well articulated breakdown of the $5.5 million gross project costs that they have.
Mhm.
So just with the new DOL, I mean, the new requirement on the prevailing wage, it's, over 5 megawatts or 5 million. This project, while it's under 5 megawatts, it is over 5 million. So it would be subject to prevailing wage, correct? Or is that not clear yet?
I'll double check the statute, but as long as they're under 5 megawatts, the cost is irrelevant with respect to solar.
Right, okay.
Any other classification of project, the 5 million stick is gonna be the important one. And as you mentioned before, I know we've been talking about due diligence and kind of a more robust review of applications. The inclusion of all project costs now on standard applications, whether it be warehousing, manufacturing, hospitality, whatever, office space, housing. They're gonna wanna include literally every project cost for a project over $5 million. I don't care if it's the beer budget, whatever it is, soft cost. That'll affect the denominator in the analysis of where 30% falls on your cost benefit analysis. And that runs a little bit against the tendency for developers to run on the light side of project costs because of their fear of paying administrative fees. That's going to be less important than having to kick in a prevailing wage. So as we approach January and you have either open projects that have closed or applications that are rolling in, that's an important analysis. The other piece of this is it's important to note that even if we close December 31st, with the presumption that we have a safe harbor, that's not necessarily the case. Anytime after January 1 where they sign a construction contract or pull a building permit, it's the way the statute's written, they're still put into the regime. So we obviously need to keep an eye on things as you have your pipeline of projects either approaching a closing or coming in as new applications.
And Justin, what will our responsibility be to enforce that, enable, monitor, or does that fall to us, or what happens once we've approved the project and if they do go after?
The initial determination on the analysis of benefits with regard to the IDA suite of benefits, that onus is on you to make a determination and an approval based upon your cost benefit analysis of whether you're already in.
Right.
There might be, like with Renzi, for example, there might be a state grant that pushes them over the top anyway. So your analysis might be somewhat irrelevant.
Right.
Again, in the 15-year thing, by the way, let's dial that in at 10 because it's, again, relevant. I don't know with the gross state assistance and local assistance that Renzi would be able to avoid it. We need to keep an eye on those things. That project is, I believe, right around 5 million, but I don't know if that, again, we'd have to take a quick look at that. But ultimately, the risk is on them for a labor, stop work order, number one, and that wage assessment for the differential between whatever they may be paying and what prevailing wage would suggest. They may be assuming the prevailing wage is going to apply. I don't know. We should probably have that conversation with them.
Okay. One other thing I flagged is, this is being couched, and I believe it to be a community solar project, but it's kind of only saying 50% of the sales in Jefferson County. I'm assuming because of proximity to Lewis County, where this is located, or I'm not really sure why that's filled out that way. We've always historically looked at community solar as kind of being in the community. Maybe they're being honest and nobody else was prior. It just doesn't strike me as, with the cost of benefit analysis so low, the high amount of already public funds tied up, and the fact that we're only looking at 50% of the sales. I just have some more discussion, not that this is a bad project, don't get me wrong. Just seems that there's some discussion the full board might wish to undertake.
Well, I think with a lot of these projects, the electrons can go anywhere. So they're not restricted to the county. So, they maybe they're thinking their realistic target would be
50%.
getting 50%.
What's that?
Wonder if they marketed some of and it's only 50% of it.
I don't know. Community solars, typically they go out and sign up applicants. And that's how it's always been.
Yeah.
And they actually do mention in here that, but again, where it's relatively located is, not exactly the population area center. It is close to Fort Drum, I doubt energy's flowing from outside into Fort Drum just for grid stability and all that type of stuff. But there is a community around there. Carthage wouldn't be very far. There's some other stuff. I actually feel like we're getting to the point we've always discussed as a board. We're saturating the market with these projects, and there's not so many, unsigned communities that can, take these. You can only sign up once for these tax benefits, savings, excuse me. That's my 2 cents worth on the grants, and is it truly a community solar? I don't like the idea that there's zero equity put in. It just strikes me as they don't even disclose $1 single of equity. It's all financed, leveraged, and public funds through $3 million of grants. So those are some things I have some heartache with.
Well, there's a little bit of nuance on these, on the solar side of things. This is an issue with this particular project. They've indicated that there will be a transition of equity ownership of the project between now and probably the construction, which we can handle in the context of an assignment later on. That's their risk at their cost. If that's the way it's going to do it, that's okay. It'll have to come back through you the way that we develop our project documents. When these are developed, this is a good example, the team that's engaging with you now, our development team, they're incurring, somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 of soft costs. That's kind of considered equity. They're going out and getting site plan, seeker, NYSERDA attributes, IDA, the whole kit and caboodle. They're generally selling those attributes to the actual equity owners, whether they're tax credit or actual holders. There's an exchange of cash for those attributes when that occurs. So there is equity floating under here. They're not necessarily identifying it, but when they point to soft costs, that's generally the risk that the development teams will run to get the attributes. They'll sell that probably at a premium. So equity owners will actually hold the project and either take down for their own benefit the ITC and the NYSERDA attributes, or syndicate the tax credit equity.
Well, maybe we can have them disclose that differently. I don't like the concept of basically a developer selling our goodwill and the government's goodwill for cash. If this gets a pilot and they already have these investment tax credits and
That's what's
things.
going on, they turn around and sell it.
That's how every single one of these jobs are.
And then,
Every single one of
so
these
the grant
jobs.
money to get put back in through cash from a sale.
These investment tax credits are usually popular with, say, like Amazon. They make too much money. They go out and buy these projects at way beyond market rate because they need a tax credit. Bezos doesn't want to pay taxes, so he just goes buys tax credits and they just put them into their corporate portfolio. That's how all this stuff works.
They have so many deductions that they don't even need the credits anymore. That's why they get syndicated.
Yeah.
Occasionally you'll see like the equivalent of home offices, money trusts or families that'll go out and scoop up these projects because they need them. Or they want to hold, the tax credits for their own account.
Okay.
But at some point, those concerns don't even have liability anymore. That's why you see them sell it off or give the attributes to another person for cash. So I understand how the market works, but the frustration that I experience, and you probably have seen it, is kind of the cavalier way that they handle these things. And I think we're saying the same thing. They're just handing these things around like it's a coupon at Costco or something. But we are a regulated entity. We need to know who the taxpayers are benefiting from the benefits that we confer. And that's why I try to be regimented in terms of who are we engaging with. If you're going to sell your project, okay, but let us know so we can handle it intelligently. Don't whipsaw us with a surprise and then put us on the scramble to try to address their problem.
Yeah. So Dave, if what Justin has said is occurred, like maybe the 2.5 million for bank financing, maybe 500,000 of it moves down to equity because they've actually made some investments in soft costs to pay for seeker. I mean, I'm sure the project disclosure is accurate. It's just maybe where they go. I just personally have an issue with $0 equity on projects of these natures, especially if the cost of benefit analysis were higher. I know we're not approving anything more than the application being complete. I'm just closing my frustration with what we have in front of us.
Well, so you're saying take, for example.
Well, I'm asking the applicant, not us. I just, if what Justin has said is truthful, and I believe it to be, if they've actually done some investment to pay for seeker and things like that, show it as equity. I mean, at minimum, they put some investment into the project, and if they have to take it away from the bank financing or move it from something else, but at least shows, my opinion, when we have the robust discussion at the board level, that there's some actual money that's been invested into this project. It's not just moving grants and pilot taxes around and selling them for a gain. That doesn't strike me as well.
I always like it when they put the cost of materials and the cost of labor, exact dollar same amounts.
Oh, just
I just, make it $10 difference or something.
So I think those are the couple things I have issue with that I'd like to explore with the developer, why only 50% of the sales for a community solar project is in Jefferson County. And then maybe explore why have you disclosed no equity when, to what Justin's indicated, I believe to also be true, if you've invested something, disclose it.
Yeah, it makes the cost of the project higher, and we should have that to do the cost.
I agree, and it's
You have
also
to
gonna
make
be this
fees.
prevailing wage issue, which, if we're getting into that threshold where I don't want us to be sitting here sneaking under the wire by approving something that the state's gonna come back and, well, nail you to a cross that we approved a project that didn't go through prevailing wage, and then we get a, demerit on our scores.
I don't know that it's gonna increase project costs. If they're gonna move, I mean, because if you look, they've included those soft costs on page 77 there. We're just talking about moving.
Yeah, I think it's wherever that 407,000 is buried,
Right, yeah.
because.
Well,
again,
that and the pre-development costs in line 5, planning, engineering and all that.
if they've spent it. I don't know if number 5 and number 7 have already been spent, but I agree, this project has been pre-developed for free. There's been some value
Yep.
spent.
Yep. Right.
It'd just be fair to disclose what that value
Yeah,
is.
well,
And
that's-
then at least I have a
Right.
lesser heartache that there's $0 equity.
Right.
I mean, this is untenable in my opinion.
We'll get that from them and
And I'd
Okay.
like to, maybe my opinion, I'm gonna ask the question at the full board meeting anyways, like, why are we only planning on selling 50% of the output for a community? I mean, the whole purpose of a community scale solar project was it's sold within the little local community.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's,
I'm not
no,
sure
I
that's
think
right.
it's community scale because they can't sell any less than 60% to residential users, basically community. So, because the law doesn't define the community as within a municipality or a county or
Right.
boundary. It's more the scale of the customer base, so, and
Again,
these so frankly,
it may be just the way
it
it's
doesn't
disclosed.
surprise me that it's only 50%.
It may be just
You
the
know?
way it's disclosed. If
Yeah.
we're doing 50% community and 50% is a grid distributor. Again, like I said, maybe everybody else has
Well,
been
no,
untruthful.
no,
and
no, they can't,
truthful.
no, so just one, so on these community scale projects, they can sell no less than 60%
Okay,
to residential community homes, right?
okay.
They can sell up to 40% to institutional users. They might get, a company X, company B, whatever, to sign up to buy power. Just like you get the postcard, they'll go and try to sell power directly to them.
So everything you
But
just
these products,
described doesn't mean.
they're not selling power, correct me if I'm wrong, they're not selling power to the grid, to the ISO. They're selling it to customers that are signing up for it. As well as utility scale project, which
Well,
are selling.
maybe it's how they filled their application out, because everything you just said, if they put 60-40, I probably wouldn't question this.
Yeah.
But 50% in Jefferson County and then 50% within the state outside of Jefferson County.
Right.
So that means to me, they are in fact putting it on the grid. Maybe they filled this.
Well, the
out wrong.
electrons travel through the grid, yes.
I get all of that. I get all of that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just how they filled it out. I mean, to me, this looks like, hey, we're gonna be a small grid distributor and hide under the community solar moniker.
Yeah.
I just don't like the way it was filled
Right.
out. So that's a personal,
Yeah.
a opinion. It's not necessarily anything that's gonna change my opinion of the project. I think the application is still largely complete, which is what the purpose of our committee is. I'm personally flagging that it's got a crappy cost of benefit analysis. I think there's some costs that need to move around and show some equity. Maybe if Justin and Dave, if you guys think there's some other information we need to start, I don't know if this is the one we have to start our new analysis critique on through that 94C doesn't apply, but we talked about some new analysis critique through the Energy Committee and things. I think we
Yeah,
don't
we
have
have
that
some
done
questions.
yet.
Yeah.
And then maybe disclosing whether the grants go on the cover page or not. One of them appears to possibly be a grant, the other one's definitely a tax credit. And I think the last thing is this is really, really on the high side of abated taxes based on all the other ones. And I know we're using our 5,500 a megawatt, but this is 76% abated. And that's including the land value. It's 78% abated if you exclude the land value.
Almost every project is that.
No, I realize but most of the other ones are pushing 30% taxation. This is like 22 and 24%. I'm just saying, this is on the low, this is on the low end of everything we've seen up to date, and I think that's where we've debated our 5,500 megawatts. We're following our rules, just pointing out that this is really one of the higher abated projects. But other than the few things I pointed out, I personally feel the application's complete. I just think I'm gonna have a lot more robust discussion. It's a full board meeting when we have to take action. I will disclose that.
You received payment for this application?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't have it in front of you, but then they sent us the payment and they sent us the signature page, so.
Dave or John, sorry, I did all the talking on a soapbox.
No, I would agree. I mean, it is kind of disappointing that they're using this as an opportunity to make money off of.
Well, it's every project, but I don't fault somebody for making money the government gives you. I mean, that's how businesses stay businesses. This is, I suppose, not abnormal to all the projects. It's just on the absolute bottom scale, low end of all the things that we've approved prior.
Well, I'm not a big fan of solar in general because of, these solar projects come into play and they have a, length of time that they're good for. But yet the utility companies have to have the capacity to, fill these voids for these things. And ultimately, that's gonna come back to a tax, ratepayer. They can't have those assets sitting there for free. I mean, it's gonna show up in your rates as as an electric user. And here we are funding these things, and ultimately it's costing us money down the road anyway, long term.
It is,
So I've said a lot of negative things. I guess the two positive things that I neglected to mention is it is a community solar project, and it is using non-high value agricultural land, unless this is a sugar maple wooded lot that I'm unaware of.
I have not seen.
Okay, so it is using low value land, which I guess is to our board's mission to try to have projects in, if that's the right term, politically correct term for agricultural.
Well, it has a low assessment. I guess that doesn't necessarily tell you the real value of the land.
Okay. Well, it just says it's a vacant wooded lot, so I'm kind of like envisioning scrub wood and things of that nature, not hardwoods and not sugar maples. And so it's not, i.e. it's not farmland. It's not the style of land where we might have a greater concern.
Yeah, there's no farming on it now, no buildings on it.
Just termites.
All right.
Dave or John,
I make a motion to move this to the board then.
all we're doing is
we're just approving the application.
Approving the
complete.
application complete.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I threw a few things out that I'd like to, when this shows up at the full board meeting, see if we can address better. Dave, a second?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye, aye, okay. So we'll move it to the full board, and I guess a recap, if we can have a better disclosure of the sales within and without of the county. Maybe be prepared to explain the community solar aspect of this, because the application is filled out maybe a bit peculiar, in my opinion. And the equity disclosure, and we'll probably at the full board maybe ask some questions on those tax credits or stuff and things of that nature. And Justin, you're already fully aware this project is going to be sold like before the ink dries on our pilot, so you've got that part of it covered.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on it. And part of me is kind of wanted to introduce the concept if there's a known assignment at the time of application, say that, oh yeah, well, we're just developers, we're the lead blockers here, we're gonna flip this thing.
Okay.
Why not act for their sale agreement, in which case we'll get a hard no, and we can say, well, let the owner apply to it.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fair.
I like that idea.
Because it's gotten to the point where they're almost doubling their transaction costs, because they gotta back. So in essence, they're handing a transaction cost to their buyer, which we're handling it, coming back through you, and getting an assignment approved, and then blessing that later on. It's just it's inefficient to me. But
Is our cost for closing it twice borne by the applicant or out of our fee?
Well, the applicant pays for legal costs on top of. So the blocker, if you will, the initial developer will absorb those costs as part of, like we talked about, their soft cost run. They're gonna get a return on that. So the next guy comes along and says, hey, I want the pilot too. We're like, okay, we gotta run it through the board, do an assignment assumption agreement, record that, make sure everything's attended to. It's just an added step, but if that's the way the industry works, I guess we can adapt a little bit. The friction, if you will, is where that second step don't tell us. Or the documents perhaps aren't drafted in such a way that you'll even know. And we talked a little bit, I think, in the last day or so about conforming things. So you're at least getting notices of when these things occur.
Okay.
You can say that the document's not assignable, that's great, but if they sell the entity, they could you might have 4 owners later before you know who to send a bill to. And that has been happening largely in the wind industry. If you're familiar with some of the stuff up in, Chattagay and all those areas, and down in the southern tier, the initial document sets and the way things were set up had a general prohibition on assignment, but didn't dial that in to the point where you have an equity shift as opposed to an outright sale. So we're just trying to play on that so you know who your client is. That's kind of important. So.
Hey, Jen, maybe you can ask that question, and I know me for one, I'd like to at least have the developer available to answer a few questions that may or may not come up on the full board.
Yep.
So we'll make a few improvements to the application with the applicants.
All right, I'll ask some questions ahead of time.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, you see if they can get the application updated or give you additional information, we can amend it, however we do it, but just getting the information, and then there may be others on the board that have different questions or the same questions, at least we'll have parts of the answers. Okay. Anything else before
Just
this committee?
One quick question, Justin, do you guys, do you work with Schuyler County?
Yep.
Judy was telling me they have something where if they make a change, something, they have like a kicker fee in there or something like that.
It's actually about, again, it gets into whether you want to require them to disclose the terms of the transfer or the project, but they're talking about, a supplemental administrative fee. If they are selling the pilot, there are costs there. I don't know that they've landed on a metric yet, but I'm not
Okay.
in other words, if they want an assignment approval, do you have, you guys are already kind of high, I've said that, but 2% is a little above typical market, but if she's charging 1% down there, and if they want to flip the project and it costs them 0.5 point based upon recertified project costs, they either want the pilot or they don't, right?
Right.
So
maybe our 2% allows for one transfer. Maybe that's what we can consider it.
get one mulligan.
Yeah, that's it. Let's go.
Okay.
And Justin, anything else for the committee that you need to bring up, or?
I'll try to get resolutions for Peggy by Friday afternoon so you guys can have your agenda ready.
All right, Dave or John or staff, anything else?
No, good.
Okay, a motion to adjourn then.
So move.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, aye?
Aye.
We stand adjourned.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Thank you. Take care.
Justin, I'll be on that other call, probably a few minutes late for the Samaritan bond. Right, isn't that not